Welcome to Fortune Friday, an interview series where I speak with entrepreneurs about money, the lessons they've learned, relationship with, and big dreams for their business and lifestyle. My name is Connie Vanderzanden, and I am a cash flow and business mentor. And on today's episode, I have the privilege of speaking with Emily Crookston. Emily is the ghostwriter for Rebels, Renegades, and Mavericks. She helps experts who are long on ideas, but short on time, write books and articles. And as the owner and decider of all things at the Pocket PhD, Emily partners with individuals and brands to translate complex ideas for lay audiences. She draws out her clients' most audacious ideas and makes sure they spread like wildfire. And her work has appeared in Forbes, Entrepreneur, Rolling Stone, and ThriveGlobal, just to name a few. Emily is also a former philosophy professor, speaker, and podcast guest. When she's not writing intensely, she's most likely practicing yoga intensely, and she lives for coffee shops that play great music to write to, and desserts topped with real whipped cream. I had a great conversation with Emily. Some of the takeaways were, I just love the visuals she shared about her earliest memory of money was playing a banker with her stuffed animals. That was the first. Nobody's come with that yet. I also appreciate the story that she shared about starting her business, the roadblock around that was insecurity of starting it, and that she had the ability to listen to her inner voice that said, don't worry, you got this. You are not somebody who's going to fail, and you will figure it out. Her best advice somebody has shared with her was, think of your business like an experiment. And I love that visual. And someday, soon, we will probably see a book from her about all the lessons she's learned as an entrepreneur. I can't wait to read that, Emily. But anyway, I hope you enjoy the conversation I had today. But without further delay, here's Emily. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining me, Emily. It's so good to see you. I am going to tell people what you would like to be introduced as, because I think it's great. You are the owner and decider of all things at Pocket PhD. I don't think we all own that we are the owner and decider. But you are a ghostwriter for Rebels, Renegades, and Mavericks, and you help experts get their big idea out of their heads and into the hands of their fans. And I just love all that. But thanks for being here. So what are you really digging about ghostwriting these days?
Oh, thanks for having me, Connie. I'm excited to be here. What am I digging the most? I really love, what I love most about ghostwriting, I'd say, is that I get to dig into a new topic with a different client every 4 months or so. So yeah, it's just really fun for me to learn about a new subject matter enough to immerse myself in writing a book for them, that, it keeps my curiosity going. And that side of my personality is really fed by the ghostwriting projects I take on.
I never thought of ghostwriting that way. I mean, that's why I liked public accounting so much, was that it would change. It wasn't the same thing at the same business before. So I never thought of it that way. Well, yeah. Now I learned something new today.
Cool.
Well, let's start off with my favorite question. What is your earliest memory of money?
Yeah, I was trying to come up with a really specific moment. I thought something has got to jump out at me, but I couldn't come up with anything that specific. But I will say, I remember as a kid, we had this dining room table that I always played underneath as a kid. And I would always play banker with my stuffed animals. And I really loved play money. Like, that was really fun. So I like to have that. And my grandmother had this toy cash register that I played with a lot as a kid. The other thing that jumps to mind is I loved starting little businesses. Like, when it came to money, when I was young, like 4 or 5, all I cared about was figuring out how I could get some, whether it was fake or real. And so I would start these little businesses. I tried selling rocks one time. I, of course, had a lemonade stand. I tried to rope my siblings into starting a car wash one summer. So there were things like that where we were always starting businesses. I think because my dad owned a business. So we thought that
Oh,
was a way to make money.
okay.
It's so funny thinking about this because I was a professor. I started out, that was my first career as a professor. And, somebody had to actually suggest to me that I should start a business. And it's funny thinking back on all these little,
Yeah.
moments from life where it's like, oh, why didn't it occur to me that I could start a business, which I was trying to do since I was 4 years old.
Well, and I love the fact that you were nurtured. I mean, I don't know of anyone that's learned to play banker with their
Oh.
stuffed animal. So what do you think was influenced that? Obviously your dad, I can see the entrepreneurial in
Yeah.
your choices.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good question. I used to play librarian and I used to play banker a lot. And I think, I liked the idea of maybe, I think I used to go to the bank a lot with my parents. And I
Yeah.
think I liked the idea of sitting back there behind the counter and helping people in that way and punching the buttons. I love punching buttons on the, I thought there was a lot of button pushing involved, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so your parents introduced you to that world early on.
Yeah, for sure. We had savings accounts very early. And I remember, what was it? Remember a lot of talk about CDs, I think it was like looking at the interest rate that we were earning just by putting money into the savings account. And of course, when I was a kid, savings accounts earned you like 8% interest.
Yeah.
Unheard of now. But yeah, I remember talking about that a lot. I also remember talking about stocks a little bit. Like there was a point where we were tracking stocks and trying to figure out which ones to invest in, which we never did in the end, but we we paid attention to that quite a bit when we were kids. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I just think that's a cool way of being introduced to it. I mean, nowadays with banking going online, it's funny to watch as kids are growing up. I mean, there's some cool apps right now where kids, Chime is what's coming to mind right now, is that so older kids can learn about how to spend and how to save and stuff. But it was that having your passbook and going to the banker and having them handwrite it in or something. That's the generation they're going to miss out on that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it gets you tuned into like going to the physical place that people don't do much anymore. I think really it tunes you to what's going on in a way that, watching your mom do her bills online on the computer is probably just not quite the same. I hadn't thought of that.
Well, and you also instilled in early on the value of paper money. I know the other several years ago, for some reason, my credit card was being replaced. And I think I've told this story before. I had to actually count cash back. Being out of that loop for a long time. I mean, one of my first jobs was working at McDonald's. So I had to count cash back every day. Yeah. And I froze. I was like, I don't know how to do this. And I was panicky. But as a young child learning, earning all these little pennies, you take them to the bank and they put money in. Yeah.
Rolling coins. We did that a lot when we were kids too. Yeah. My mom, for a while, we would put quarters into a bank, like a little sandcastle bank. So we put quarters in. We were saving up for Disney World, kind of things. Yeah.
Your parents taught you a lot about it.
I guess you're right. Yeah, I hadn't considered that. Yeah.
I'm curious why your grandmother had a old-fashioned cash register, though.
Oh yeah, I don't know where she got that. It was just a fun toy for us to play with as kids. Yeah, I don't know. My grandfather also owned a business, my dad's father.
Okay.
So that kind of runs in the blood. And my great grandfather was a roofer, like all of these small businesses. Yeah, it definitely runs in the blood. So I think she probably had it from some shop that closed up or, some reason
nice.
like that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, when you think about numbers, so obviously you were raised to like money, like that play money. Did that translate into the same thing about loving numbers, or what was your relationship with that now?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, I've always thought of myself as a person who's kind of scared of numbers. But it was funny thinking about this question. I was pushed ahead in math when I was in elementary school. So like I did algebra in
Mhm.
8th grade, which was a year
Wow.
early at my school. Yeah. But I got to high school and I had to retake algebra because I wasn't testing to the level I needed to be. So I think that that's when I started feeling like, oh, maybe I'm not so good at math. Once I
Mhm.
got bumped back down, it felt like I was being bumped down. And I really had a terrible math education looking back. I think with better teachers, I might have enjoyed it more. I think maybe it's true that I have some kind of natural aptitude toward it, but the attitudes around numbers were never that good for me. Like my parents were not that much into math. Into money, yeah, but not so
Oh.
much into math.
Mhm.
Like my grandfather was an engineer, but we never really talked about math. I never remember conversations like that, like, ooh, math is cool. I remember struggling to learn times tables, and which isn't really math, turns out. It's just memorization. But
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
but
Yes.
having those kinds of attitudes toward numbers that
That's
kind of
interesting.
colored
Yeah.
my vision of it now, colored how I think about the money, doing money for my business and worrying about finances
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
Because I have an aversion, I would say.
Yeah, sitting down, which is normal. A lot of people, I think,
Yeah.
growing up in our educational system, it's either money's bad or good, or your numbers are bad or good, you got it right or
Right.
wrong type of thing. So it's
Mhm.
really easy to be have that mindset around, I can do this. Or I just spoke with somebody where they were really good at how they used language, but you can't be both. You can be really
Mm,
good in how you speak
right.
and write, but not math. You can't. And so,
Yeah.
can we both be and? Can it be and, not both?
Right.
Or
Yeah, that's
or
a good point. Right. Yeah, that resonates too. Like, are you the artsy person, or are you good at speaking language? Yeah, or
yeah.
are you good at numbers? Those are like the three choices. Right.
So did you realize that when you started to have to do your own accounting and your bookkeeping, that you are in your own business, that being having this number issue, was it right away, or did you figure out was it many years later that your avoidance of numbers was causing an issue? Or
I think I knew pretty much right away. I think whenever I saw a lot of advice about doing your finances for your business, it always felt super overwhelming.
oh
Like you
yeah.
need 13 spreadsheets and you need profit and loss. You better be understanding what all of those numbers means, and you better be able to do all of it yourself because you can't just pass it off to a professional. You need to know how it works. If you don't know your numbers, you see on Shark Tank even, right? If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business, that sort of thing. So I was always like, in the beginning, when I started my business, I was always feeling pretty ashamed that I wasn't doing all of these things that I thought you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Uh, since then, I've gotten more comfortable where I think a lot of the advice around how to do your numbers is like if you have employees and if you have a big company or even maybe a medium-sized company, or maybe you're selling products and you need to keep track of inventory. Like there's a lot. I'm realizing that a lot of businesses are more complicated than my basically solopreneur ghostwriting business, service
Yes.
oriented business is. And so for me, it's good enough to look at my numbers once a month. You rectify, or however you say it, categorize the expenses and things in a way that makes sense for me and my accountant.
Yeah.
um, and then it's good enough. It takes me only about less than 30 minutes probably to do my finances once a month.
I love that. Good enough. But I also want to go back to, it works for you
Hmm.
and your accountant. Sometimes there can be a disconnect between what works for you, the business owner, and the accountant, because some accountants can be really stuck in their mindset about how it needs to be showing up and what tool you use and stuff. So I must have a great relationship with your accountant about being more flexible in that.
Yes. Yeah, that was important for me in finding an accountant,
Mhm.
because I knew that if it was somebody who was really rigid and expected me to do all of these things that I didn't understand why I was doing them, or I didn't see how it was really benefiting me, that I would just rebel and not do it,
Yeah.
So,
No, I love that. And that's key for everyone that's listening in, is that you find one that works for you. Sometimes we want somebody to sit across the table and tell us what to do, and then as we get more comfortable with numbers, realize you can change that relationship. You can, but you sometimes have to ask for it. You have to know what you want and go into that conversation. So did you have to kiss a few frogs before you found the right one?
Yes, for sure. for sure. And I think it took me time to even figure out what it was that I wanted to be able to ask.
Yes.
To say. But yes.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Okay. So did we talk about these rock bottom moments or learning opportunities? Because you come back from an entrepreneurial background of family members, you might not see it as a roadblock, but usually it involves something with money. Some money is tied to it somehow. Can you share what business roadblock you had or have had in the past?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I will say, coming from my background as an academic, the reason I became a professor is because what I wanted was a secure job that I could have forever until I reached retirement. And I don't know where that idea entered my mind. I mean, I watched my dad start his business. I think he started it when I was maybe 5-6 years old. So I watched him go through those years of struggling to build the business. And I remember really vividly, like, times of worrying about not having money and yelling about bouncing checks all over town, things like this. Very vividly, I remember these things. So I think, I think I was sort of warned away from wanting to start a business and thinking like the way to happiness is a secure 9 to 5. Basically, academia is a little different, but a secure salaried kind of job that I could count on through retirement. Mm-hmm. And I think my mom she worked in a hospital, and she worked at the same hospital for 30 years or so before she retired, which is really unusual these days. I mean, almost no one keeps a job like that. But that's really what I was after. So the idea of starting a business, in the insecurity of it, really scared me. So there, in the beginning it was like, okay, if this doesn't work in a year, I'm going to have to go and get a job. I'm going to have to be a coffee barista or something, right? I'm going to have to make some money some way. So there was that clear in my mind, like, success or failure, this is it, and I think, so that was kind of, that first year was tough just because of that pressure that I was putting on myself. And I think over time, I've sort of realized that no job is 100% secure. Lots of my friends in academia aren't happy in their positions, even people who had tenure, which I couldn't get, which is why I ended up leaving. But even people who get to the highest levels in academia are not always happy. And I've sort of realized that freedom is more important to me as a value than security. And so owning a business has been a really nice way to, sort of shift my mindset toward that direction. It's really fulfilling in that way.
And what do you think you leaned into the most when you were having those insecurities? What was the thing that helped you break that cycle?
Yeah. Well, one thing I remember thinking to myself, you're not the kind of person who fails. So how, whatever that means. And I didn't know what it meant when I said that to myself. But just knowing, like, I will figure something out. If it means going and getting a job, okay, I accept that. Maybe that's what it's going to have to mean. But whatever it is, I'm going to be okay. That was, one thought that helped a lot. But I think also I've always been into networking. I've always had group coaching kinds of situations. So having people around me going through similar struggles, and, you know, talking to business owners who'd been at this for a little longer than me, and realizing, you know, the ebbs and flows never really go away. And, you know, one of the things you're going to have to do is get comfortable with the feast or famine until you can figure out how to make, you know, how to get those revenues to be more even and more equal month to month. That's just something you're going to have to embrace in the beginning, and you know, think about what you can learn from those experiences, and figuring out how to grow from that, you know.
Yeah.
Somebody said to me at some point really early on, think of your business as an experiment, and that was like the most helpful piece of advice anyone had given me, because up until that point I was really looking for the syllabus to running a successful business. You know, just give me the steps, please. I'm a good student, I will follow the steps. You know? But it's not like that.
No, it's not and I like the fact though that you leaned into like-minded community, or like focused community, because a lot of times solopreneurs can be so stuck in hustle that they've isolated themselves from that. So how did you get into a group coaching program? Was it from somebody that you were networking with, that you were introduced to it, or?
Yeah, I think so. So I moved to North Carolina right after starting my business. I had been living in South Carolina and moved to North Carolina. So in my mind, I thought, well, if I'm going to make this business work, I'm going to have to meet people. So I looked on Meetup and found a group that was meeting once a week. And I started going there. And then eventually some people through that group were doing this other group coaching program that I heard about. And so I did that for a while, and yeah.
Awesome. I think that's great. I love this. Think of your business like an experiment.
Right.
I think that's a great thing if people are stuck, that our listeners are stuck at all, to rethink that. I think COVID has given us a great example of how to be nimble and rethink everything and question it. And I think that's that millennial energy too, is question everything, question why we are doing these things. So that's great energy to have.
Yeah. And you stop thinking of this as like, oh, am I going to fail? You know, instead it's like, maybe this thing is going to fail, and that's okay. You're going to learn some stuff and you're going to change it up and try something different. But it doesn't mean, oh, this product is never going to sell. It means you need to reposition it, or you need to do something different. So thinking of it as an experiment really helped me get rid of this like fear of failure that I had.
I love that. So the freedom is the thing that you're doing for your business. That's the one thing it's giving you a lot of. Is there anything else that your business helps provide for your big dream?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think from a personal development standpoint, there's nothing better than trying to run your own business. You're going to learn so much about yourself in the process, especially a solopreneur kind of business. Like, man, what I've learned about how I operate, and how my mindset, and how I am as a manager, and how I talk to clients. I mean, it's just amazing to observe myself in this role where there's no one telling me what to do. You know, there's none of that at all. It's really interesting from that standpoint. In fact, I want to write a book about this. I want to write a book about self-awareness and how I've developed that in owning my own business. But yeah, there's no better way to learn something about yourself.
Yeah. I remember being a Girl Scout. At the time, I didn't understand this, but as I got to be a Girl Scout leader later in life, I realized, the part about selling cookies, it's not about the cookies. It's about being empowered to try things and experiment things and finding your voice to ask for things. And so business is something similar, as we're asking for things and getting, being found and stuff, but still it can trigger a lot of things. And so whether or not we let those triggers keep us small, which is okay. But if we keep it, or do we want to get it out there and see more people? And I guess that's the other thing, is that a business really gives us that ability. And like what who you work with. A book is a great example of getting people's vision out there, their dream out there, so that they can impact more people and make a change they want to see in the world. And that's what our business allows us to do. So
it really does. And I think before you own a business, you don't realize that transformational aspect of it, and how much you do start to look at yourself as a leader. Even if you're running your, solopreneur kind of business, you are a leader. If you're out there on social media talking about things and people are having conversations with you about it, you are leading change.
You are.
Yeah. And it's really cool.
That's awesome. So what does, so as a solopreneur, you probably don't have a support team as like individual people. You do a podcast though, too. You do a podcast on LinkedIn. Do you have other people that you lean into on a regular basis that helps keep things flowing?
Yeah, I actually made my first hire this year in February. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so he's my writing apprentice. And so he does some client work as well as he's in the process of building his own business. And so what I want it to be is kind of an incubator for other people trying to start businesses similar to mine. So he's helping me in that way. And I definitely lean on him it's so nice to have somebody to brainstorm ideas with and just bounce ideas off of. So that's awesome. I also took the plunge with one-on-one coaching this year. So I have my first one-on-one coach. Actually, we're done working together in a couple of days. So it's for 6 months of the year. And that's been a real game changer for me. So I'm so super glad that I made that investment. Just having somebody look really deeply at the business and say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And leading me through making those decisions has really changed the way I look at the business. So I've developed a couple of new services doing that. And so, like I said, I've always done the group coaching. I've always had people around me to bounce ideas and vent with or at sometimes. And that's been really huge in helping me, stay on track and not get lost and worried.
I love that. I do think, it's helpful. I'm going from solopreneur to having a team. It's nice to have somebody bounce things off, but we don't want to share necessarily with our teammate the darkness of our business.
Right. That's finding those boundaries has been really part of what I've been doing all year. I feel like, because it's great to talk to him about, he'll listen to anything I say because he's interested and he's soaking it all up for his own good. But also sometimes I'm like, does he really care about it? The nitty gritty here, because this is really pretty specific to my business. So it's nice to have a coach who, I'm paying her to listen to whatever it is that I want to talk about. Yes.
But I hadn't heard of, the idea of bringing somebody in and using it as an incubator for other people, because a lot of times we feel, it's they're going to take from us, or they're going to. So I love this idea of that. Again, back to the experiment idea, that incubator space. I'm learning so many cool things today.
Cool. I think it's, the reason I did it is because I was real hesitant to hire anybody. Like, I trust myself to deliver on time, all of that. Can I really trust someone else to do those things and to do the job well? So my sort of solution was, rather than be responsible for a person right up the gate, responsible for their livelihood, bring on an apprentice, and I can teach him, and I won't have to have the pressure of having him know everything right away. I can, with the idea that I'm teaching him some things. And it's interesting because I was talking to a friend today, and she said to me, well, he's going to learn all these things and then he's going to leave. And I'm like, yeah, I know, that's kind of the point. That's what I'm hoping. Yeah, I want him to leave the nest.
But they will never. They'll never do it the same way you do. They'll never have the same eye. I think when I went to grow my bookkeeping business, I thought I could teach. I knew I could teach bookkeepers certain ways that I did it, but I soon realized that they would never be able to see it the same way I did. They wouldn't have the same gift that I could see for numbers. And so there was only so much you can teach them. And risk, like you said, in your first year, that ability to be willing to take the risk, that's a whole thing we can't teach somebody. They've either they gotta be desiring that freedom or something, or they want to create their own thing. So,
right.
Yeah, cool. So as we're ending our conversation today, do you have an inspiration that your business allows for you to have? Is there some gratitude you can share about your business?
Yeah, I will say, going back to the freedom piece, that is my greatest gratitude. I can go to yoga. I usually go to yoga most days in the middle of the day for about 2 hours. I practice yoga. And there are very few jobs I can think of that would allow me to do that regularly at 1 p.m. every day, take a 2-hour lunch, So, and yoga has been a lifeline for me ever since I started practicing, really. So those two things, running my business and being able to practice, are huge parts of my life. And I can't imagine being happy without those two things at this moment.
I love that. I didn't know that you were like, you did mention that you were practicing 5 days a week or something. I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, to put that as a priority and make sure that you can, it's your business, you can adjust the time however you want to.
Yep.
Oh, that's lovely. And have you been able still to go in person, or are you back up to in person now?
Yes, we are in person again.
Nice.
Yes, which is amazing.
Yes. Awesome. Awesome. Well, I think people would really like to learn more about you. And I know you brought something fun. So can you give us a little bit more information about how best they can connect with you and what your free gift is?
Sure. Yeah. So the best way to find me is my website, which is thepocketphd.com. You can find me and connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I am most of the time on social media. And it's Emily Crookston on LinkedIn. So along with that, I started a LinkedIn experiment this year. And as a result, I've been at it now using LinkedIn for like 100% of my networking for about a year now. And I came up with this little guide, LinkedIn Mastery Guide. I'm calling it LinkedIn Cliffs Notes. And I'm happy to send that to send that to you. If you'd like to email me, I can send that to you. There's also a fun little quiz on my website, which you can take, and that will get you into my newsletter, on my newsletter list. And
nice.
I'll send out, links to all these things.
Yeah.
So my email address is emily@thepocketphd.com.
I love that. And yeah, do find her on LinkedIn and check out the conversations she's been having. I was one of them, but you've been having you asked some great questions of experts that I had never thought about before. So I really appreciate the format of here.
Yeah, you were a guest on there, and it was really fun. So I always love those interviews. They're always really eye-opening.
Yes. But you do have I've learned some great things about LinkedIn from being on your list, and I'm excited to go. I love that you called it Cliff Notes. I'm going to go get my own.
Nice.
Well, thanks, Emily, for being my guest today. I appreciate it. And for everyone else that's watching, thanks for joining, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.